Jamaica, 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 Jamaica.
Yes, Jam Rock is the home of good reggae music and has also become a force to be reckoned with in world affairs and international relations. Last year, through our inclusive foreign policy, Jamaica's strong international standing was strengthened. Welcome to Jamaica Magazine, where keeping you informed about that and more is our mission and commitment. Today we do that with the last in our year in review and look at Jamaica's strong ties with the European Union. And we wrap up our weekly Tuesday highlights of the 1907 earthquake experience as the end of Earthquake Awareness Month draws near. Stay with us. The pages of the magazine unfold right now.
The incubation period for Ebola, that is, the time between exposure to the virus and when persons start displaying symptoms, is from 2 to 21 days. If you have traveled to or know anyone in your community who has been in an Ebola-affected country within that time, contact the Ministry of Health. Play your part. Let's keep Jamaica Ebola-free. For more information, call 1-888-1-LOVE. A message from the Ministry of Health.
Good day, I'm Stacey Ann Smith and this is your GIS News for Tuesday, January 27. Jamaica's dependence on fossil fuels is expected to be significantly reduced with a $90 million investment focused on developing clean energy projects on the island. The funds are being provided by the United States Overseas Private Investment Corporation, OPIC, and the U.S. State Department. At Monday's Caribbean Energy Security Summit in the U.S. capital, Washington, D.C., it was revealed that OPIC would be disbursing the first tranche of $43 million to finance a 34-megawatt wind project by Blue Mountain Renewables in Monroe, St. Elizabeth. That project is expected to get underway in June. Prime Minister Portia Simpson-Miller, who spoke at the summit, welcomed the move, saying it would assist Jamaica's ongoing response to its serious energy challenges. The Clean Energy Program is part of OPIC's $700 million fund, which is geared at promoting energy efficiency and integrating renewables into the region's energy sector. Just last week, Energy Minister Philip Paulwell signed an MOU for clean energy development, renewable energy integration and private sector investment in the sector as part of the OPIC Jamaica collaboration. The U.S. Department of the Interior and the Department of State are also working with Jamaica to facilitate commercial renewable energy on public lands. Accelerating growth and protecting the most vulnerable in society were identified as priority areas for the government during a recent cabinet retreat.
Overall, the cabinet took the decision that the basic thrust of the economic reform program should be sustained to continue our basic debt reduction path and to unlock the dynamic of growth and employment creation in the economy.
The finance minister gave that update at a special media briefing on Monday. He said cabinet also mandated the creation of a national poverty reduction committee.
The PIOJ also has been mandated to update the survey of living conditions to bring it up to date in the quickest time possible so that the policy making can be informed by the most up-to-date data possible.
In the meantime, Cabinet has considered the basic outlines of the 2015-2016 budget, which is expected to be tabled on February 19. The new fiscal rules require that the budget be passed before the end of the current financial year on March 31. With significant improvements in the island's global business and investment outlook, there are high hopes for the second Jamaica Investment Forum. The forum, which will be held from March 10 to 12 at the Montego Bay Convention Center, was recently launched. Industry, Investment and Commerce Minister Anthony Hilton says Jamaica's improved rankings in international indices could spell well for inflows of foreign direct investments.
This is what the Jamaica Investment Forum is all about. It is about moving the country in the right direction. The Jamaica Investment Forum is also about tangible results.
150 local and international investors are expected to attend the forum. Changing gears to national security, Portfolio Minister Peter Bunting has called on Jamaicans to return to the culture of condemning criminals as the nation advances in the fight against crime.
We don't ostracize criminals anymore. We don't see somebody scamming, knowing that they're preying on the most vulnerable, a little pensioner whose life savings they're going to rob and probably put that person out on the street. We see that and we say, no man, it's just a little hustling. It's just a little hustling because we're not seeing the victim. And we accept that. We should ostracize that person. We should want to drive them out of the community. We should report them to the police.
Minister Bunting was speaking last Wednesday at a community meeting in Onoto Bay, St. Mary. The minister and a contingent of police officers from the parish walked with residents as part of the symbolic Unite for Change march in the district. Minister Bunting also used his time in the parish to commend the security forces in that region, as he declared that in 2014 there was a 29% reduction in murders in St. Mary. And Justice Minister Mark Golding says drug abuse public education programs funded by the licensing of regulated hemp and ganja industries will target vulnerable persons. Cabinet recently approved amendments to the Dangerous Drugs Act, which will in part support the regulatory framework for introducing legal hemp and ganja industries to Jamaica. Proceeds from those licenses will finance drug abuse interventions targeted at adolescents, persons with mental disorders, pregnant women, and other vulnerable persons.
It is also intended that our institutional arrangements for the tackling of the problems of drug abuse, and in particular our mental health services and the National Council on Drug Abuse, will be strengthened by this source of new revenues. The Minister of Finance is given specific authority under the bill to direct the allocation of these revenues for these important purposes.
The Dangerous Drugs Amendment Act was tabled in the Senate last Friday, January 23. And that's it for GIS News Today. I'm Stacey Ann Smith. Thank you for watching.
Stop smoking around me! Without cigarettes, the world will be much better. Smoking is bad for your health. And when grown-ups smoke around us, we are breathing in their smoke too.
Cigarette smoking is bad for your health and the health of those around you. Don't smoke around children. A message from the Pan American Health Organization.
Patrick Robinson, Ambassador Stephen Vassiani, Ambassador Courtney Rattray, just some of the noted Jamaican names making waves in the international community. Find out how these persons and the man at the helm of the Foreign Affairs Ministry helped to advance Jamaica's foreign policy in 2014.
Advancing Jamaica's inclusive and proactive foreign policy and securing its trade interests abroad. These were the key tasks championed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade in 2014 to maximize Jamaica's growth and development objectives. In 2014, Jamaica's position as a global influence was affirmed and strengthened, evidenced by some noteworthy international appointments. International jurist Patrick Robinson became only the second Caribbean person elected to serve as a judge in the International Court of Justice, ICJ. Ambassador Stephen Vassiani was elected to chair the ICJ's Committee on Juridical and Political Affairs. Jamaica's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Courtney Rattray, was appointed chair of the UN Intergovernmental Negotiations on Security Council Reform. Kurt Davis was elected to represent Jamaica as Vice Chair of the Social, Humanitarian and Cultural Committee, which addresses human rights and social development matters. And Jamaican national Caroline Gardner was re-elected to serve on the International Civil Service Commission of the UN for the period 2015 to 2018. Last year, the Foreign Affairs Ministry made several important appointments and engaged in various bilateral discussions to tighten the bonds of mutually beneficial friendship with other nations. 3 new High Commissioners were appointed to serve in Canada, South Africa, and Trinidad and Tobago. The country engaged its partners in high-level meetings involving CARICOM, Cuba, Latin America, Japan, and China. On home soil, Jamaica celebrated 50 years of diplomatic relations with Japan, as well as 20 years of CARICOM-Japan relations, 50 years of Jamaica-Egypt relations, and 20 years of diplomatic relations between Jamaica and South Africa. 2014 found the Foreign Affairs Ministry using several regional and international platforms to protect the free movement and trade competitiveness of Jamaicans and promote development. In September, the Foreign Affairs Minister signed a €46 million agreement with the European Union to bolster development support in the areas of environment, climate change, and the rule of law under the National Indicative Program. The ministry also signed several bilateral agreements with Brazil, including air services, defense cooperation, and tax information exchange, as well as a joint communique to strengthen people-to-people linkages, trade, and economic ties.
Other bilateral discussions focused on greater cooperation in the field of energy, with particular emphasis on the role of biofuels as a key instrument of sustainable development.
Jamaica and Nigeria also renewed bilateral agreements on economic, scientific, technical, and cultural cooperation.
Under economics and trade, both countries agreed to continue discussions on the agreement for the avoidance of double taxation in the effort to increase trade between us.
Closer to home, Jamaica ratified an agreement in April for regional cooperation on natural disasters. Meanwhile, the Foreign Affairs Ministry pushed for the private sector to be incorporated within the CARICOM Council on Trade and Economic Development, COTED.
Jamaica strongly supports the view that the private sector should have a seat at the table of the COTED meetings, bearing in mind the critical role that they have played and must continue to play in regional integration.
There were also advances in air services and free movement within and outside the region. Visa restrictions for Chinese nationals wishing to visit Jamaica were lifted to increase visitor arrivals from that country. In March, Minister Nicholson announced that Jamaicans traveling to Bermuda for tourism, business, or on a work permit no longer needed a visa or visa waiver once they had a valid multiple entry visa to the United States, Canada, or the United Kingdom.
This is indeed a welcome development for Jamaicans who propose to visit Bermuda, and comes just a few weeks after I had signed with the Foreign Minister of Brazil here in Kingston an agreement to facilitate a visa-free travel of Jamaican nationals to that country.
And Jamaica and other Caribbean countries celebrated victory in the fight to revise the contentious UK air passenger duty. In 2014, government moved to bring the collective power of the Jamaican diaspora to bear on development. As part of that, work continued towards the completion of the diaspora policy, which will complement the national policy on international migration and development.
We circulated the draft to the various stakeholders across the UK, the US, Canada, and they have sent back their comments in writing. Those comments have been incorporated in the document.
At the same time, a website was developed and unveiled for the Mapping Jamaica's Diaspora project. The project aims at gathering data on the location, interests, skills, and financial and technical resources of Jamaicans in the diaspora, so government can engage them for services, products, investment, and other development opportunities. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade in 2014, strengthening foreign relations and maximizing Jamaica's growth and development objectives.
And on that note, we wrap up the Year in Review series of the major achievements in 2014. The mission continues in 2015, and Jamaica Magazine will bring you all the developments as they unfold. Right now, join us as we explore relations between the European Union and Jamaica. Get the facts.
The European Union, commonly referred to as the EU, is a unique economic and political partnership between 28 European countries. With over 500 million inhabitants, these countries cover much of the continent of Europe. French Foreign Minister Robert Schuman is credited with first putting forward the ideas behind the European Union on May 9, 1950. The partnership began in the aftermath of the Second World War, when in 1958 the European Economic Council (EEC) was formed, initially between 6 countries, to foster economic cooperation and reduce armed conflict. The EEC eventually morphed into a huge single market and continued to develop. What began as a purely economic union further evolved into an organization spanning policy areas from development aid to environment. And to reflect this, the name was changed from the European Economic Council to the European Union in 1993. Individual national parliaments remain and work in cooperation with the directly elected European Parliament. The Union is based on the rule of law, and everything it does is founded on treaties that are voluntarily and democratically agreed on by all member countries. Human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and respect for human rights are core values of the EU. Over the last 50 years, the Union has delivered peace, stability, and prosperity, which have raised living standards for Europeans. The single internal market of the EU is the main economic engine, enabling most goods, services, money, and people to move freely throughout much of the continent. There is a common monetary policy, and the euro is the common currency. The EU is recognizable by several symbols. The most well-known is its flag. There is also an anthem with a melody chosen from Beethoven's 9th Symphony. The European Union's motto is United in Diversity. The EU obtains revenue not only from contributions from member countries, but also from import duties on products originating outside the EU, as well as a percentage of the value-added tax levied by each country. The EU budget pays for a vast array of activities, from rural development and environmental protection to protection of external borders and promotion of human rights. The Commission, Council, and Parliament all have a say in how big the budget is and how it is allocated. But the Commission and EU countries are responsible for the actual spending. The European Union is not only a key political and trade partner for Jamaica, but through its external cooperation programs, is also the country's largest grant partner for development. The European Commission, the official delegation of the EU, established its delegation in Jamaica in April 1976, after the first of the Lomé Conventions was signed. The Lomé Conventions is among a number of legal documents of which Jamaica is a signatory, and forms the basis for Jamaica's collaboration with the EU. There is also the African, Caribbean, Pacific ACP-EU Partnership Agreement, signed in Western Africa on June 23, 2000. The CARIFORUM EU Economic Partnership Agreement (EPA) was signed on October 15, 2008, and there is also the Paris Declaration. Heads of state and government of the EU and the Latin America and the Caribbean countries, including Jamaica, get together biannually for the EU, Latin America, and the Caribbean LAC summits. The EU interventions in Jamaica have been increasing. There is country ownership and the accountability for the programs that are jointly designed by the EU delegation and the government. And these are submitted for approval to the relevant European institutions in the form of annual action programs. And in recent times, there has been a progressive shift from project approach to budget support.
This is my appeal, Jamaica. Give blood for real. Give blood and give the gift of life. So safe you don't have to think twice. Do what you can for one another. Yeah, man. Be a hero, be a blood donor. Yeah, me people. Watch it. Give blood. For your sister and your brother, save the life of another. You might never know. Give blood. As you know, my life, you love many people. blood. The Father says so. One blood. Sign up today. Be a blood donor. Many people. One blood.
Community strengthening and awareness, the recipe for building earthquake resilience. That has been the month-long theme for Earthquake Awareness Month, which wraps up later this week. For the last few Tuesdays, we've been looking back at the 1907 earthquake with an eye on lessons that can be learned to prevent or minimize future disasters. The lessons in photography wrap up now.
1907 quake, during, before, and after. The viewer is first allowed a glimpse of 1800s Kingston, routine and pedestrian. Then, January 14, at the turn of the century, the day on which the quake hit, half of the artillery house at Fort Charles sank below the sand and King Street went up in flames. The long but more systematic and planned rebuilding phase ensued.
The pamphlet published by a photographer named Calm has a message in it about people looking at the photographs and deciding that they have to build back Kingston. But first, before you do this, could you come to Panama and work on the canal in Panama, earn some money in Panama, and then come back to rebuild your city?
Many of the buildings which featured prominently in downtown Kingston's townscape, such as the Theatre Royal, the Jewish Synagogue, and the Kingston Parish Church, were completely destroyed and had to be replaced. In some instances, the rebuilding process took several years. Post-earthquake retrospection yielded that brick and mortar categorically failed the earthquake-resistant test.
In the exhibition, Ansel Hart, that we've used his narrative also, speaks to the fact that the brick and stonework, the brickwork buildings didn't survive as well, that arches, the one mention of arches being more, stable than the mere brick because the mortar in between wasn't so good.
Most of the churches, for instance, that were of brick were totally destroyed. Coke Methodist Church was not totally destroyed, and they rebuilt it with brick, but they rebuilt it with a safer sort of configuration. They stopped using pointed arches. They realized that pointed arches did not stand up as well as rounded arches, so they went to rounded arches rather than pointed arches in the Coke Church.
The reports showed where the layout of Harbour and Duke Streets pre-1907 was particularly haphazard and cumbersome. It was commonplace for government offices, commercial enterprises, and private dwellings to alternate on either side of the streets. After the earthquake, all the government's administrative buildings were removed to King Street.
They literally turned the center of Lower King Street into the equivalent of a square, but with a road running through it. And those two massive, very modern, solid buildings that scream out at you, this is a post-earthquake building, because it's meant to stand up, if we get that sort of earthquake again.
As a result, Harbour Street lost its status as downtown's commercial center to King Street. Dr. Boxer says that the island's photographic culture expanded significantly after 1907. Several persons started to capture images of the quake, while some practicing photographers like E.E. Grant reached new heights in the profession. Modest's fascination with the 1907 earthquake, however, is defining how we as a people respond culturally to natural disasters. He believes that the significance of our pre-disaster routine goes much deeper than collecting potable water and securing our vital documents. When we pray for the track of hurricanes to deviate from the island, he asks, do we do so with the realistic expectation that the hurricanes will not make landfall? The issue of greatest magnitude for the co-curators, however, is the fact that Jamaica is still to effectively apply the lessons of 1907.
Don't make diseases spread. Wash your hands with soap and water instead. Wash them regular or use a hand sanitizer. Make sure the germs them dead. Touching your eyes or your mouth or your nose. Wash your hands before you do things like those. After you use the bathroom before preparing food, come on, wash your hand them clean.
There is no vaccine for the chikungunya virus. If you've been infected, take paracetamol such as Panadol, Cetamol, and Tylenol to reduce pain and fever. Sleep under mosquito netting and get plenty of rest. Take showers or sponge baths in room temperature water to lower fever, especially in children, and drink lots of fluids to prevent dehydration. If your symptoms worsen, go and see a doctor. Do not take aspirin as this could cause bleeding, and never use rubbing alcohol. To learn more, call 1-888-1-LOVE. That's 1-888-663-5683.
Tomorrow is promised to no one, so let's make use of the gift we have today, the present. Think about that as we close the pages of today's Jamaica magazine. For all your timely news and updates, visit our website at gis.gov.jm. And we want to hear from you, so drop us a line or two at jamaicamagazine@gis.gov.jm. You can also catch up with us on Facebook and Twitter. On behalf of the hard-working GIS production team, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Thanks for watching and do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.